Right, welcome back, everybody. It's almost 20 minutes before 7 already. Now, the CEO of Tzoro IBC, Mthunzi Mdwaba, is to lead Africa as the regional vice president at the International Organization of Employers in Switzerland. Now, this is the only recognized body representing the interests of employers in international social and labor policy matters. Mr. Mdwaba was chosen as one of 5 vice presidents, among others from North America, Latin America, Europe and Asia, and he joins us now in studio on Morning Live. So good to have you. Welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me.
Well, congratulations. This is a major achievement
Thank you, Leanne.
For you and the country.
Well, it is. It is very big for the country. I think certainly. I think for me, I'd like to place emphasis on the size of it for the country because it's work that one does out of love. It's always work I've done because I believe in it, and work I've always done because I believe in human capital development. Pretty much my history over the years has always been, even when I've done business, I've always been involved in business that seeks to nurture talent, that seeks to create jobs, that seeks to ensure that people are able to live with dignity. Yeah.
You also participate at a high level at the International Labour Organization. Is there a bit of a conflict happening there?
No, there isn't. In fact, there's an alignment.
Okay.
The International Organization of Employers, the IOE, works very closely with the ILO. So the way it works, just so people can understand, the International Labour Organization works on a tripartism basis. It is the only organization in the world that is also a United Nations multilateral agency that works with trade unions, employer organizations and governments. Okay. So it will be made up of about 160 plus governments. It will be made of trade unions from 160 plus countries and employer organizations from about 160 plus countries. Yeah. So the IOE will devote its work towards employer-related activities or business-related activities, whereas trade unions will also have an organization called ACTRAF that will do similar work.
Yeah. Now, having a look at what this is all about, in the press release it said you will oversee political matters concerning employees and business organizations within the continent. Elaborate a bit. What is your responsibility going on?
Well, my responsibility really is to ensure that business organizations in Africa, I think I must also mention that we have an organization called Business Africa, which is run, or rather the Secretary General is a colleague of mine from Kenya, a lady by the name of Jacqueline Mugo. So it is to coordinate with people like Jackie in Kenya, coordinate with colleagues throughout the continent to ensure that we have representation that is effective at the ILO, representation that is effective at the IOE. You will probably be aware that most business organizations have huge resource challenges, huge capacitation challenges. In spite of them being business organizations, sometimes there is a view or a misconception that therefore they will be well resourced. They are able to do all the things that are expected of business organizations on behalf of enterprises, on behalf of entrepreneurs. But in fact, it is business organizations that need a lot of resourcing. And my role is to ensure that I also work with the IOE, work with the ILO, work with an organization within the ILO called ACTEMP. ACTEMP is there for technical cooperation, resource mobilization, and assisting organizations on the ground.
Okay, let's talk practically now, because whenever we talking about labor issues, we always seem to be focusing in on the employees rather than the employer.
Yes.
What are the employer's concerns?
Thank you so much for focusing on the employer.
It's a pleasure. Well,
it's
this
refreshing.
is what it's all about.
It is refreshing. You know, we employers, or rather we business people, always find it so difficult, in the country as well, I must tell you, to be listened to be taken seriously on issues that relate to ensuring that our businesses thrive. You know, we always have this kind of title that, you know, these capitalists are always looking to take a skin off somebody's back, which is never really the case. You know, they are like everybody else, like trade unions. There will always be 1 or 2 people that make us look bad, but we shouldn't make generalizations like that. What employers require really is a flexibility to be able to be consulted. You know, we're not even saying, I mean, you know, you'll hear people, we have a problem with rigidity of laws. Always. I mean, I was watching the little Zimbabwean thing you had as I was coming into the studio. And I was listening to how the guys were saying liberalization has never actually created jobs. That may well be, but what we are asking for as employers is you've got to have flexibility when you look at laws. You've got to consult employers. You've got to consult enterprises. You've got to consult entrepreneurs who actually know how to run a business. Because ultimately, we are the ones who have to create an environment that ensures that employees are happy, that we thrive, and therefore we can pay good taxes and so on. We are saying ensure that there are regulatory impact assessments, what is called RIAs. So if you're going to pass a law, do a regulatory impact assessment and see how this law is going to affect all of us adversely or positively. Because once that's done, then we are all happy. We work as a team to ensure that we make things work. But the tendency is to have a lack of execution, or rather a lack of implementation sometimes of good laws. Okay, we have good laws, but there's no inspectorate. There's no policing those laws. And the tendency is to strengthen laws with other laws.
Yeah.
That is what we don't like. Because all you do now is you just create a mess of regulation, which takes a lot of time to understand and to appreciate, and which requires that now you employ people in positions where it's not necessary, where you could be employing people in different areas to be able to make a living and support their families.
All right, very quickly, but let's look at the landscape of South Africa. And I think this year is a grand example of exactly the kind of environment we find ourselves when we've had major strikes that have basically brought us to our knees when we look at what happened in the platinum sector. We're looking now at NUMSA. We're holding thumbs that there will be a deal that'll be had by Monday next week. But these are bringing our country down. We're being downgraded economically. Things are not working. From the outset, it looks like things are not working. What's going wrong? Because I know what you're saying, but the guys on the ground want to earn the money, and they feel that they're not being appreciated by their employer. How do we draw that line? How do we know that this is fair and this isn't fair?
Look, there's a lot that we could be doing better. Certainly, strikes that take forever are a challenge. Strikes are part of the labor system. Strikes are part of tripartism. They are a necessary tool sometimes for trade unions and for employees to negotiate and so on. But, all of this has got to be done within reason. Yeah. I think for me, the breakdown is in our tripartism. Because, by the way, what we do at the ILO is exactly what NEDLAC is supposed to do on a microcosmic level in South Africa, where all three parties, employers, employees, and governments, are supposed to talk about these things. I do tend that there's a lot of updating that we need to do at NEDLAC, a lot of emphasis that we need to have at NEDLAC, where, for instance, other ministries other than just the Ministry of Labour. There's a lot of things that we don't have time to discuss here today, where, for instance, the Ministry of Finance should be in touch with what's happening at NEDLAC. The Ministry of Trade should always be in touch with what's happening. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs should always be in touch. The Ministry of Education, so that we have a consolidated, policy coherent discussion. Okay. It's not one that works on one level, but you don't really what's happening in those four areas on the outside. But at the same time, we have a challenge, I think, of talking rather too much as South Africans. Yeah. We do talk a lot. There's a colleague of mine who used to say that if economies were to grow on pure rhetoric, would probably be one of the wealthiest countries in the world. Yeah. Because we talk a good talk, but quite frankly, we don't actually walk the talk and do the things we say we should do. Policy coordination is a very important one for me.
Well, let's leave it there. In fact, we've got our Economic Development Minister who's waiting for us in our Cape Town studio. Perhaps we can bring up a couple of these issues with him. There he is waiting for us, and he's our next guest after the break. But it's been a pleasure talking to him, Mthunzi. Good luck in your new role. Mthunzi Mdwaba is the Vice President of the International Organization of Employers.